Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Collegian Football Podcast, winning Collegian Football Podcast at 1-0. Alexis, how are we doing?
Doing amazing. College football returning to Happy Valley this week, Justin.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're 1-0. The town's excited. Everyone's excited about last weekend, of course. I mean, what could you not love about that game? That was some awesome college football, and obviously, it was a great weekend in Madison. I mean, it was really cool to finally see fans back. And while I'll say that being there, the crowd was obviously great. It ended up getting packed by, I would say, at the second quarter. But Jump Around looked a little better on TV than in person. I don't know if that's
This is our hot take of the week.
If that's in Happy Valley, I'm worried for the structure of Beaver Stadium. But it was. For real, it was really cool to see fans back in the stands. And obviously that just fueled the players, and it just made the product look so much better than it did last year. And
Absolutely.
I was just really excited to be able to see that and just, witness what felt like normal college football again.
100%. Let's talk about Penn State's performance during this game.
No, absolutely. And so how can we not start with the defense, because they were absolutely electric in this game.
Yes.
And Brett Pry pitched an absolute gem. And I think the first guy we got to talk about is, obviously we could talk about Jaquan Brisker for his interception. We'll get to him, of course. Yes. But Arnold Ebiketie, AK, he had an unbelievable debut for Penn State.
Absolutely.
He was all over the backfield at all times. He left the game due to injury at one point, but then he comes back in the game. In the first play, he's back in the backfield making a tackle. So how cool was it just to be able to see him and watch him transition from Temple to Penn State with such ease.
Yeah, he was definitely top of my list of players that I was excited to watch in the blue and white, and he certainly did not disappoint. He lived up to the hype that all of the coaches and players were talking about in the preseason, and he likes to own that his teammates say, this isn't Temple. This is Big Ten football. Yeah. And he certainly played like it out there against Wisconsin. He left no doubt that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with this season, and he is going to be a great leader for this team.
Yeah, never a bad thing when they're throwing a little Temple shade in there. And but anyway, so, I mean, he was great. And just being able to have him when you have Adisa Isaac out for the year, it's truly saving their butts right now. And he was just so effective just throughout the whole course of the game, too. He didn't slow down. Like, he was people were saying in media last week that, we've never seen a guy move quite like AK. And
for his size, too.
Yeah, well, because he gained 20 pounds after transferring here. Franklin talked about it yesterday. And him being able to take that next step and become a Big Ten level player, I mean, that's not only huge for this team, but that's huge for him personally, because he might have some opportunities, ahead. And just him being able to show out on a stage like that on Saturday was awesome.
Absolutely. And transitioning to the other end of the defensive line, we have to talk about JesseLucetta as well. And, we knew coming into this game that he was going to be splitting his time between defensive end and linebacker. And I think that we expected him to be just as strong, if not on the level as AK. But he certainly didn't disappoint either, and especially when he was called back to the linebacker position when Ellis Brooks headed to the locker room after that targeting penalty. He was amazing during this game, that he was able to, transition from a defensive line mindset back to the linebacker. That's unique. You don't see that very often. As John Scott Jr. said in his media availability this week, there's not many guys in the NFL that can do that, let alone in college football. So JesseLucetta was definitely impressive this weekend.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious from all we've heard this week that he's receiving some really significant praise from everyone involved in the program. And last year, let's be honest, he didn't have his best season. And he was a big part of Penn State's struggles defensively, especially against the run at first. And when Adisa Isaac goes out and you have him sliding to that position, there were certainly a lot of people, I think including us, that had their doubts about it. I mean, one of my biggest questions heading into last weekend was, could the defensive line go up against that Wisconsin O-line? And they not only did that, but they were flourished against them. And obviously Lucetta was a huge part of that. And he was stopping the run. He was in the backfield. He was just very active across the line. And like you said, once Ellis Brooks goes down, or doesn't go down, gets ejected for the targeting call, which we could do a whole podcast in itself.
Really?
But seriously, he slid back there with ease and was a huge reason why they were able to get one last defensive stand and obviously ending with the Brisker pick. So Lucetta, I mean, he's going to have to start again there this weekend because Ellis Brooks will be out for the first half. But him being like a hybrid type of guy is a luxury that maybe they didn't expect heading into the offseason.
They didn't know that they needed it.
But like he's done it, and he's done it with relative ease, it looked like this weekend. And they're I wouldn't be shocked if they keep him, in that role no matter what, even when Ellis Brooks is at full strength and when the D-line is at full strength, because he was very useful at both spots. So it's a really good thing for Penn State to have and for Brent Pry's defense.
Definitely. Let's transition to the secondary now. And Jaquan Brisker and Jair Brown. How many great things can you say about these two from Saturday? Each of them having a pick, multiple opportunities for a pick that obviously both of them, they've talked about it extensively that they want some of those opportunities back, but what a great start to the season for these two Lackawanna College
boys getting it done.
JUCO transfers, and they're excelling at this level. It's inspiring to watch that you come from that level and are able to make the transition to not only Division I, but Big Ten Power 5 football. That's not easy. And, they're doing it with ease. They're great examples for this team, and their teammates have told us that they're amazing leaders. They lead by example and with their voices. So their performances on Saturday absolutely were the heart of this defense.
Yeah, I want to talk about that Brisker pick for a minute. First off, Gus Johnson call, absolutely electric. I mean, he's like screaming as he's running down the sidelines. Whoa, defense. And that was, I mean, that's like college football, like, at its finest.
This is what we miss.
I mean, and the silence of the crowd behind it was just so cool. So I just want to say that. But also, them both getting a pick was just so poetic. And it was like just both, like you said, both junior college kids like coming up and finally getting their opportunity to start together. And they both get huge picks in the fourth quarter to seal the game. Like, how do you even script that? And from that, how good can the secondary really be? Because the corners were excellent as well, I thought. I mean, Tariq is obviously a veteran, and Joey Porter had a great year last year, but even Kalen King, who's a freshman, was able to come in and contribute and do some really good things. So I think this secondary group is one where they could be one of the better ones we've seen in Penn State history, because Penn State's never really been known as, a secondary producing school. And they're as really talented as it gets. It was really, really good to see against Wisconsin.
Yeah, very much improved from last season. I mean, how many head shaking plays did that secondary give up last season that are just, miscommunication, step off, step late. You could just tell that they've improved light years from where they were last year. And credit to them, credit to these leaders for stepping up and saying, listen, we need to be better than what we were last year. And they're getting off on the right foot with that win at Wisconsin.
It just makes the defense whole, too. Like, we've heard in the past how good, Penn State front sevens can be and how dangerous they can be in terms of getting to the quarterback and the linebackers, obviously, being a linebacker, And but having a secondary that's as complete as it is something that can make this defense maybe one of the better ones in the country. And obviously, it's one game. We can't overreact, but it'll be really interesting to see just how it keeps on progressing throughout the season and if they can keep up that performance, because obviously pretty much doesn't get any better than it was in Wisconsin. That was just unbelievable.
Yeah, they definitely needed to pick up the slack for the offense, which they started off on the wrong foot, to say the least, in the first half. Could not connect on literally anything from the run game to the pass game. I mean, how many times in the first half did we see, Jahan Dotson and Parker Washington just streaking down the field, just beating everybody, and the throw just wasn't there, or it was thrown and it was just missed. I mean, this offense was not in sync in the first half, and I think they learned from that. They came out much improved in the second half, and was it perfect? No, but it got the job done.
Yeah, we'll talk about Sean first. And well, obviously, Clifford had a lot of overthrows and just missed opportunities that he could have, taken advantage of. I tweeted this out right after the game, and a lot of people were interacting with it. Mm-hmm. He didn't make the crucial mistake, which last year he would just put this defense in such a hole when he would get that brutal first quarter pick or have that fumble in the backfield, and that didn't happen. He was able to protect the ball, and despite not putting it where it needed to be every time, he made smart decisions.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to be able to win with this offense and Sean Clifford at quarterback, that's going to be absolutely essential for him because he isn't the most, talented quarterback in the country. And I think everyone recognizes that. But if he can be a good game manager and just put deep balls where they need to be and continue to, work with the offense, work with Yurcich, and just get better every week, then I think he had a ton to build off of. So I'm not out on Sean Clifford after that game at all because he's a real big reason they won that game.
I mean, it's the simple things, like you said, just not turning the ball over, not making stupid decisions. And he was able to manage the game from that standpoint. But other than that, everything else just was not clicking for this offense in the first half. It is the first game. They still have a lot of kinks to work out. They were able to get the job done. So can you really fault anything there as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, you can't. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to win many more games with having 2 rushing yards at halftime.
No,
it was really – that was the only puzzling thing I thought with Yurcich was he wanted to get Clifford, I think, established in the pocket really early and, hit Parker, hit Jahan, hit Keandre Lambert-Smith on those slant routes and those go routes. But at the same time, the offensive line was struggling. And so everything wasn't on Sean Clifford. It's the left guard situation is definitely something we're going to have to continue to monitor. I mean, Anthony Wiggin wasn't great.
No.
And I think that once they get that figured out, I thought Eric Wilson definitely played a little better. And I think he played more in the second half too.
I would agree with that.
It's definitely a situation they're going to have to continue to monitor because there were guys getting beat, no doubt. And Wisconsin was getting pressure on Clifford. They're getting in the backfield on runs. And that's going to have to improve because, Sean Clifford isn't the type of guy who's going to be, making plays on the run every play and just, improvising like that. He's someone who needs to get some quick hitters, some easy routes. And if he's able to, connect on those, then everything will open up for him. So, everything was not on Sean Clifford whatsoever. And like I just said, the book is still out on Sean Clifford for this season. And I'm not feeling confident with him at this very second.
Yeah, I just think in the second half at the beginning, he started to establish himself some more, like you said, on those quick slant routes to he hit Washington a couple times, just across the middle.
How good of a route runner is Parker Washington?
Yeah, he made it easy.
So crisp, and Jahan too, but they find a way to get open so easily without using speed even, which is just obviously such a tremendous trait to have for a receiver. It was really cool. That was awesome, I thought.
Yeah, they definitely established something coming out of the locker room, which they did not do from the starting whistle. So that's something that they're going to have to look at this week when they watch the film tape, and they're going to have to do more of that if they want to be in some more games from the start, not from the start of the second half. As Franklin said, they need to play 4 strong quarters, not 2, not 3. They need to play 4.
Not just second half team.
Yeah, we're not just a second half team
but,
here.
But I also thought that my last offensive takeaway was they need to get tight ends involved. I mean, we've heard all summer and spring long how good this tight end group was, and they really weren't targeted that much. I know Brenton Strange had that one tough drop, but I mean they're going to be able to make plays. So trying to get them on the field more and just getting them targets is going to be something I think they're going to have to do against Ball State, and something they're probably going to be able to work on against Ball State.
I was just going to say that they're going to be able to establish more of a tight end presence against a lower level team like Ball State, where it's not as pressing to score.
It could have been a matchup thing too. I know they were missing one of their key linebackers because of COVID, but just might have been a matchup with the safeties of the linebackers they didn't like. But I do think that they're a really big part of this offense. And we saw last year that in Kirk Shiraka's offense that the tight ends were kind of not forgotten about, but they weren't as involved as maybe we would have liked them to be. So I was a little surprised that Jursic didn't get them, the ball more.
Yeah, and that's going to be something that I think that they're going to have to look at more as, teams start to catch on to what Jahan Dotson and Parker Washington can bring to the table. When they start getting, double teamed and everything, they're going to have to look for a way to open up more things in the pass game, and tight end room is where it's at. Franklin and Coach Ty Howell, they've said multiple times, this might be the best tight end group as a whole that Penn State's ever had. Why aren't they using it?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that they're going to have to get answered soon, because in order to get this offense to where they want to be, they're going to have to use them. So
absolutely. Maybe we'll see some of that against Ball State. What are you thinking about this matchup, Justin? Penn State, Ball State, home opener at Beaver Stadium. What are you thinking?
Letdown, not possible.
No, I'm right there with you. I don't think they're going to throw this one away.
Yeah, so I think they open up at 22.5. So I mean, they should. They got the fans back at Beaver Stadium for the first time since 2019. There are some players. If you're a freshman and a sophomore, you're playing in front of a crowd at Penn State for the first time. And so that's like a lot of guys on that team. So I'm sure it's going to be a cool experience for them. And Franklin talked about something pretty interesting yesterday. Someone asked him, are there any home disadvantages? And he was like, honestly, yeah, there are distractions. There are certainly things that, can get your mind off of the task at hand. But at the same time, having over 100,000 people behind you is something pretty special. And yeah, it's going to be really cool to see. I'm so excited to be back there. But, Ball State's a team that they're not going to be able to take them lightly. And I think James Franklin knows that.
I think they all know that too.
Yeah. They're a returning conference champion. The MAC is one of the better mid-major conferences as well, too. So, and they have veterans on their team.
Oh, yeah. They have I think it's 16 super seniors what the term that we're using for fifth years.
Between COVID and other
red shirts and everything.
And other years of eligibility.
That's a lot of experience, though.
We got some 30-year-olds on there.
Yeah. Conference champions, though, you got to respect that. Put some respect on Ball State's name. Does that mean that they're not gonna come out here and with their tail between their legs? They're going to come out there ready to win. And, I was able to speak with their head coach, Mike New, over Zoom. And, he said, we're preparing for this. We're in our stadium practicing with every single speaker turned up to the highest volume that we can, including music, crowd noises, literally everything that you could imagine that Beaver Stadium is going to throw at you, from fans, music, players, everything. They're practicing for it. They're hungry. They want to put up a fight against Penn State.
Oh yeah, they have talented players too.
Absolutely.
It's not even they're not just a team that's going to come in here and they're not going to compete at all. They have Justin Hall, their senior wide receiver, who is one of the better wide receivers statistically in the country. I know he's their all-time receptions leader. He's going to break the yards record eventually. And him and possibly my favorite name that we've read so far this season, Johannes Tyler. Also,
that's a good one.
Also a wide receiver for them. But no, he's put up some really good numbers too, and he's also a senior. So they have experience at that position, and they have a third-year starter like Sean Clifford as well in Drew Plitt. So they struggled a little bit against Western Illinois, but I won't fault them too much, I guess, just first game of the season. But we'll see what they do. They have an offense that has experienced veterans on that team.
Justin, this team isn't only talented on the offensive side of the ball. They've got some pretty good players on the defensive side of the ball as well.
Yeah, looking at them this week, I saw. Their linebacker group is definitely, I would say, their strongest on the defensive side of the ball. Again, experience there. They have a couple guys in Brandon Martin and Christian Albright who put up some really good numbers during their championship run last year, and definitely are going to be stingy against the run. But that'll be an interesting matchup to watch to see if Noah Kane can get behind those guys. But again, they're a group that is definitely very prideful. They're coming off a conference championship, and they want to make a statement. They saw how much the Penn State offense struggled last week. I'm sure they're going to emulate some things that Wisconsin did, and that would be something that I guess will allow Penn State to again work on some of those things. And obviously, you need to win the game, but at the same time, you got to start developing some of these tendencies that, you want as the season goes on. So that'll be an interesting development to watch.
Yep. Got it. This is the time to experiment with some things, especially with some of the crucial matchups they have coming up in the next couple weeks.
And that was something that Franklin touched on slightly yesterday, that they couldn't do last year because of the only conference schedule. And they were thrown right into the thick of things. At Indiana, you couldn't work on anything, and then you have Ohio State in week 2. So, I mean, it was like they couldn't do those type of things last year. And now you hope they can take care of Ball State, and you also have the Villanova game where you can develop those things, and you can, try some of your new personnel as well. So offensively and defensively, they're going to definitely be working on things at the same time as obviously they try to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, we heard them last week.
Favorite part of the week.
What are your keys to the game this week against Ball State for Penn State?
3 keys to the game are, first, establish the run early. They did not do that at all against Wisconsin, and obviously Noah Cain got it going in the fourth quarter. He was awesome. But get him going early. Like, we saw what he could do at his highest level, and he looked like the Noah Cain in the fourth quarter that we saw at the end of 2019. That was like, wow, this guy can be the next guy here. And if they can just, get him an early touch and an early, big run, then that's just going to help his confidence, too, coming off the injury. And
it's going to set the tone.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You want to set the tone in this game 100%. And he's the type of guy that can be the one that does that.
Yep. Feed him early.
Second key to the game is don't do too much defensively, meaning keep it simple. They kept it simple last week. They didn't, throw any crazy schemes out there, any really crazy blitzes or anything. You're more talented than Ball State is. That's just how it is. How it is.
Yep.
Your one-on-one matchups should be able to beat theirs. And again, we talked about them. They have talented receivers. They have a veteran quarterback. But at the same time, you have veterans in the defensive backfield, and they should be able to win those one-on-one matchups, you would hope.
Yeah.
And just, again, keep it simple. You don't want to do too much. Let big plays get behind you. James Franklin talks about it. Win the turnover battle, win the big play battle.
Yep.
And keeping it simple last week, they were able to do that. And don't change anything up. You've did it. Do everything you did last week.
Yeah.
And you should be okay. And the last one for our special teams player, Big Ten special teams player of the week, Jordan Stout, is make kicks. Come on.
Plain and simple.
Obviously, it didn't end up killing them, and I also do think.
But it could have.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we were sweating there in the 4th and goal, but you can thank Graham Mertz for finding Jaquan Brisker in the end zone. But
imagine if Brisker did not intercept that.
I guarantee
they would have made an extra point.
I guarantee you, Jordan Stout gave Jaquan Brisker probably the biggest congratulations after the game that he's ever given. But seriously, Stout did some really good things in the punting game, I will say. He had some really good punts, and every kickoff was a touchback. And this is a really critical time for him personally, because he's the type of guy that could make the NFL just because of how big of a leg he has and his versatility, which is obviously a really key asset for him. Yeah. But
all three facets of the
game. The short kicking thing is crazy to me.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's a chip shot.
It's just always been. I mean, we've always heard. And meanwhile, Franklin said that Pinniger was available, but that Stout just won the battle in camp.
Yeah.
But at the same time, was the rule not always 40 and in pin, 40 and out Stout?
And that's what they said prior to the season too. That's, I think, where the disconnect lies with what the coaching staff is putting out there with what Penn State fan base expected. I mean, for the past couple of years, it was always, Pinniger taking those short chip shots and then Stout having the big leg out farther and making those kicks. I mean, I guess he won it fair and square, so props to him. If they say he earned it, then he earned it. They're not just giving it to him just as a free prize, but you gotta be able to perform when the pressure's on.
Yeah, we're saying this because we know he can make them. Jordan, make the kicks. Come on.
All right. I think that's going to wrap it up for us this week. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Collegian Football Podcast. For Justin, I'm Alexis. We'll see you here next time.